Hey guys, this is the Mind of Lilith, and thank you for joining me today. I wanted to quickly share my thoughts about some of the comments, the reactions, and the responses that I've heard and read from Black men who have an issue with women like Cassie and Gloria Velez, speaking up about some of the experiences dealing with Black men in the industry. And, what's interesting is that the men who are complaining now about these women wanting money for their trauma, they're the same ones who prefer these types of women when it comes to dating. They want women who are fit, feminine, and friendly. They don't mention anything about intellect, education, character, integrity, discipline, work ethic. They want someone to submit to them. When you have a woman who's completely submissive to you, she has no power and she may not have any resources. So if she's completely submitted to you, you're responsible for her to take care of her. If she's submitting her power to you, she's letting you control her whole life, you are taking responsibility for her like a child. Because Kevin Samuels said that Black men don't care about your degrees, Black women. They don't care about your profession, your job, your career, your house. They don't care about none of that. All they care about is you being fit, feminine, friendly, and submissive. So when someone gives you control and power over their entire life because you're submitting to them, you're responsible to take care of them. You're responsible to make sure that you're protecting them and you're providing for them. These, industry groupies, women in the industry, they were submitting to the desires of these Black men who use their power and their resources to control these women. They knew these women wanted bags and shoes and clothes and luxury and clout. They knew this about these women. And that's why they exalted these women. They put them on a pedestal. You see strippers and escorts in every rap video. You don't see hardworking professional women in these videos. You see whores and groupies because they want complete and total submission from a woman. And it's easy to get a woman to submit to you when she has nothing to offer but her body. It is easier to control a woman who has no education and no means of providing for herself other than laying on her back for money. That's why I want fit, feminine, and friendly women who are submissive, so you can control them. So why are you mad now that these women are getting paid on the back end and the front end? They got paid when you were paying them for sex 20 years ago, and they're getting paid now because you kind of created a work environment where they felt like they had to perform sexual favors for you to get certain positions, which is true. You can't get mad at them now for submitting to the culture of the industry. Groupies tend to not have a retirement plan. Their retirement plan is living off of a man because, again, going to school isn't important. Having a career is not important. You men said that wasn't important for you guys. You punished the women like Drew Dixon who were intelligent and educated and who was about the merits of the work that she was doing. She didn't want to put out for L.A. Reid or for Russell Simmons, and she was punished for that. And now she's suing. You wanted to put the whores and the groupies on a pedestal in these music videos, and you weaponized these women against hardworking Black women who were about self-sufficiency. Cassie and Gloria Velez are prime examples of why many Black women refuse to rely on and depend on a Black man. I'm not saying that all Black men are, like Diddy. I'm not saying that. But there are a lot more Diddies in our community than Black men would like to admit. A lot of Black men have learned from their mothers and their aunties and their sisters and their cousins that when you submit fully to a Black man, your life is going to be destroyed. Period. If you submit to somebody who doesn't have a vision for themselves, who has no integrity, no self-control, who is stupid and dumb, and you're young, if you fully submit to that man, he's going to destroy your life. It is best to have your own money. It is in your best interest as a Black woman, especially, to have the means to take care of yourself without having to submit to an abusive, insecure man. Because you're going to end up like Gloria Velez or Cassie. At some point, feeling like you were taken advantage of, like you were used, and you have nothing to show for the sacrifices you made, to accommodate this man's needs. This is why I've stated in the past on my channel multiple times, I do not like sex work. I don't like sex workers either, because there's too many opportunities in this country for you to make money without having to do that, okay? Unless you're forced into sex works by way of kidnapping and brutality, I have no sympathy for you. If you're choosing to do this, you're not, doped up on drugs, you don't have a pimp doing this to you, then I have little to no sympathy for sex workers. I'm sorry. It's hard for me to support a lifestyle where women are selling their bodies to men. I don't like the idea of that. Okay. And this is one of the reasons why I said that I had issue with the Love and Hip Hop show itself, the franchise, because it was glorifying talentless whores and prostitutes, women who had no real talent. They were just pretty groupies that had access to men in the industry, and that was it. They really had no skill set other than being pretty. And there's nothing wrong with that. Pretty is nice. Pretty makes the world go around. I love looking at beautiful people, men and women. But that should not be, you shouldn't be rewarded just because you're pretty. That's a race to the bottom because now everybody's pretty. And so what are you offering besides your looks? Are you smart? Are you talented? Are you educated? Do you have work ethic? If you don't have any of those things and you're allowed to be put in positions of power in the industry, you're going to have what we have now, a bunch of talentless models singing and rapping. Prostitutes and sex workers cannot elevate the culture. They cannot. All they can do is bring it down because they're only there to satisfy a man's lust. And when you're in any situation where you're just there to satisfy a man's needs, you're going to see what happened to the music industry. A bunch of degradation, a bunch of debauchery, a bunch of dysfunction, a bunch of violence and death, okay? It becomes a death culture. When men are put on a pedestal and their needs are always being met and they're put in positions of power and they have complete control over you, they will grind you into dust, literally and figuratively. Now you have all these bodies on you, all this trauma, and you're in your 40s and 50s with nothing to show for being passed around the industry. So these men are just mad that their preferences are getting them on the front end and the back end. Pay me for sex, for access to my beautiful preference body, and you're going to pay me for the lawsuit because you made me feel like I had to do that to get put in this video. I had to have sex with you to get hired for this job. And that's sexual harassment. That's an HR nightmare. So these beautiful women are getting paid twice. And they're mad about that. But then the men are also saying, oh, well, they knew what it was. They knew better. Listen, in some cases, that may be true. But in most cases, men tend to prey on younger women because they don't know nothing. A lot of young people are stupid. That's just the way that we were designed. When we're younger, we don't know shit, right? We may know things logically, but we don't understand the ramifications of some of the actions that we're taking. We don't understand that being with a bummy dude or a drug dealer or, getting into sex work at a young age. We don't understand the psychological, emotional, or the physical ramifications of making certain mistakes when we're younger. We don't know. That is why men prefer young women under the age of 24, 23, because young women don't know that wolves are actually wolves. We think that wolves just look good. Look at the pretty fur and the sharp teeth. Oh my God. It's so pretty. And pretty could be a physical beauty of the man, or it could be the trinkets the man's giving you, right? Look how pretty the wolf is. Little Red Riding Hood. Oh my God, beautiful fur. Look at the beautiful teeth in the eyes, right? Look, he's so handsome. He's whatever. And the wolf says the better to eat you with. But the girl doesn't understand that. She's like, oh, he's so pretty. Yeah, I'm pretty because I'm here to devour you. I need to bait you into my lair. So I'm going to present myself as Prince Charming, but I'm actually a damn wolf. When you're 16, 17, 18 years old, you don't have the discernment. More than likely, you can't differentiate between a wolf and a prince because you don't have the context. You're too young. That's why they prey on young girls. And then when we get discernment, we become bitter. We older women in our 30s and 40s and 50s become the bitter, old, wicked stepmothers because we can peep game to the extent that we're no longer going to allow someone to exploit and abuse and manipulate and hurt us anymore. I was speaking to a detective months ago for several hours, and he used to patrol the NYCHA houses in New York City, the project buildings. And he said there are cameras in every single building. They know everything that's going on. I had no idea. I'm like, wow, they're surveilling Black people like that? The government is surveilling Black people like that. Yes. And this detective has been on the job for about 20 years. And he said there's so many incidents of women getting raped in the elevators in the building. He said there was one recent incident where there was a young lady who was coming back from work like 2 a.m. and she goes into the elevator in this high-rise project building. And, a predator, Black man, basically jumps behind her, forces her way into the elevator. The lady freezes up. She freezes. And that is sort of a fight-flight response. In a sense, A lot of women have learned to freeze up when they're being traumatized by a man, because you fight back, the man is going to potentially hurt you even more if you fight back. So women learn to freeze up. They don't fight back. I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but that's the reason why that happens. He said many of the women don't even scream. They just let it happen. So when the beast is done assaulting his victim, he runs out of the building like the innocent king that he is. And he says that many of these women, none of them, out of all the time that he's been in the NYPD, he said that maybe 1 or 2 women filed police reports. It's so rare, he said. It happens all of the time. So many Black women have learned to internalize the abuse that's inflicted on us. We absorb it into our bodies. And so at some point we become sick. We develop autoimmune disorders. We start gaining weight. We start losing our hair. We become temperamental, angry for no reason, because we're holding a lot of trauma in our bodies. And these men will turn around and say, what's wrong with y'all? Y'all aren't fit, feminine, and friendly. Well, when we are fit, feminine, and friendly, we're treated like Cassie and Gloria Velez. We're beaten, used, and discarded like sexual objects. And that hurts a woman's feelings and her self-esteem to be considered worthless unless she's being used for sex. And so a lot of Black women have decided to marry their careers and their degrees, because at the very least, the career and the degree, to a certain extent, provide some sort of financial security without having to degrade yourself for someone who doesn't like you. So these men are dogging their fit, feminine, and friendly preferences out. These are women who are young and beautiful and likely uneducated, who are completely under the control of their older male bosses, and they've submitted. They've submitted to your will. They've submitted to your lust. They've submitted to your ego. They've submitted to your power. So why don't you want to take care of them? Now they're retired, they're out the game. They need you as a backup plan, according to you guys. So what's the problem with that? What is the issue with that? What is the problem with them using their beauty to continue to get paid? How else are they going to take care of themselves? They don't have degrees, because you said you don't want somebody with a degree. You want someone who is pretty and feminine and fit and submissive. So why would she, get a job? For what? You're her job. She's working you, and you're okay with getting worked because she's a preference and she's pretty and she's young. So continue to pay. Like, what's the problem? Why are you complaining about something that you have created? This is the culture of sex workers that you have propagated and promoted in our community. So what? When you pay for something, you take responsibility for it, you take an accountability for it. And because Black men, and men are the gender of accountability, they should have no problem paying these women their retirement fund for being abused. They were abused. They were taken advantage of and exploited. Absolutely. If these women were paid because they were having sex with the bosses, that is sexual harassment. That's sexual exploitation. Whether the woman wanted to do it or not, it's your responsibility as the man, as the leader, to not take advantage of the woman. I have had teenagers and young people come to me asking me out on dates. People that I've worked with. People I'm their bosses, or I'm their supervisor, manager, whatever. And I'm like, what? I'm in my 30s. I would never date a teenager or 20-year-old. It's your responsibility as the adult to say, I will not touch a child. You are the last line of defense when it comes to protecting a child. If these children are out here, 16, 17, 18, whatever, loose and wild and lost and not knowing what they want to do with their life, and then they come to you, an adult, offering sexual favors for money, it is your responsibility as the adult to say, hell no, you're a child. I don't care what you say. I don't care how you look. I don't care what you do. I will never put my hands on a child, a teenager, a young adult, someone who's my subordinate. No, there's something called self-control. But when you have no self-control, you will always blame someone else for your actions. So now it's the woman's fault that you're a whoremonger. It's Cassie's fault and Gloria Velez's fault and these other women's fault who are groupies that you could not control your lust. Aren't you supposed to be the leader, the boss, king, daddy, God? What happened? A young teenager can control you to the point where you're willing to jeopardize your career just for sex? If it's one thing these Black men should learn from these lawsuits, is why many Black women would prefer to marry their degrees and their careers than them. Because even if a man has money, especially a Black male, that does not guarantee that your life is going to be peaceful. If you are at the mercy of a man, any man, okay, and you don't have provision to take care of yourself financially, your life could be in danger. Your life is going to be hell for the most part. I'm not saying that it's always the case, because there's some men who take very good care of their wives. There's some who do this, right? And they are a blessing because it's rare. But for the most part, if you are completely dependent on a man, you run the risk of being treated like Ariane or Cassie or Gloria Velez or any of the other women who basically use their looks to pay their bills. And, I don't think there's anything wrong with being pretty and getting paid for that. Like, you can be a model, that's what's up. But the sex part is an issue for me. Like, I don't like the idea of random, deviant, destructive, dirty, disgusting men having access to a woman's body for a bag and clothes and shoes. I don't like that because it's not worth it to me. It's to the point, seriously, where I would rather starve than allow a man that I don't have feelings for to put his hands on me and to touch me, period. I'm not doing that. Not for no money. And to another point that I made before, we really have to stop glorifying sex workers in our community. I'm sick of it. We have to start rewarding women who are intelligent, hardworking, educated, and have a sense of purpose other than buying shoes, bags, clothes, and BBLs. I'm tired of these women who are like escorts and prostitutes being seen as like the face of Black culture. That is not fair to the rest of us who do not live this way. We have to stop supporting entertainment where Black women are presenting themselves as Jezebels or sapphires or plantation wenches, just hypersexual, always twerking, always having their ass out. This all they really care about is showing like their body parts. There's nothing of substance that they're talking about in their music. We have to stop supporting that type of music because more than likely, these women who are glorified prostitutes with rap beats and lyrics, they may have slept their way to the top. Y'all heard about Ashanti or Gotti. Ashanti to me was always a mediocre, low-level singer. I've always asked myself, how did she get put on in the industry? Because she was dating Irv Gotti or smashing him at the time while he was married. That's why. She has no remarkable talent to me. But this is what happens when you have men in control of an industry. You get a bunch of women who are mediocre, pretty, but mediocre when it comes to talent. And they're the ones dictating the quality of our cultural expression. We need to put talent and merit over looks like we used to do back in the day. Now, final point. A lot of these men are mad at Cassie and Gloria Velez because they didn't use their silence to protect their predators. A lot of these men expect the woman that they hate to protect them from the consequences of their actions. These Black men expect the women that they cheat on, dog out, abuse, and disrespect to keep quiet so that the world won't see them for who they are. If the world doesn't see them for who they are, they can continue to prey on innocent women and children. They can continue to be a vampire, a predator, or a succubus. If the world doesn't see these Black men for who they are, they can continue to gaslight all women into self-flagellation, blaming themselves for the abuse that Black men inflict upon them. And that is why these men are mad, because the feminine and friendly preferences are exposing how these men really treat women who are submissive to them. They violate them. They rob them of their humanity. And, they're stripped of their divinity. And they're ravaged by the wickedness of these men. It is amazing that the gender of accountability and logic doesn't want Diddy to be held accountable for his actions. Just like many of you don't. Many Black men don't want to be held accountable either. So they blame the white man, they blame the system, they blame the Black woman, they blame everyone but themselves for their wayward behavior. And I'm not talking about all Black men. I'm not, because there are some righteous Black men who are disgusted by what happened to Cassie and who believe that she should be adequately compensated. But we're going to need the good Black men to speak louder and stop letting these big mouth, wide-jawed deviants speak on your behalf. I'm tired of the loud miscreants acting as if they're representatives of the Black community. If you're a Black man with common sense, who is logical and fair, please start calling out some of these dudes by name. Because when women like myself do it, we're discredited as being biased because of our gender. Stop letting these culture vultures shame you into silence. If P. Diddy and other men in the industry are symbols of the embodiment of the patriarchy, right? They're omnipresent, they're abusive, controlling, powerful, and wealthy, then Cassie's victimization should be analyzed through the same lens that we use for Black men who are victims of subjugation and oppression at the hands of the state. Just like Cassie, Black men are in a romantic relationship with a patriarchal system that enriches itself through plunder, war, and rape. But just because they're married to the system doesn't mean that they're not being abused by it. But You have to be a logical, rational human being to understand that when there's a power imbalance in any relationship, whether it's personal or professional, there's a risk of someone being exploited. And it's possible for the exploited to become the exploiters themselves, which explains the relationship between Black men and women. It is hard to have empathy for a woman who dares to fight back against the system that you're married to, because Black men also have Stockholm syndrome. You also love your oppressor, and you identify with your oppressor to the extent that it limits your ability to have empathy for people with less power, namely women and children. And like a narcissist, you only have empathy for yourself, Black men. Not all Black men, but the ones who are blaming Cassie for what happened to her and blaming Gloria Velez, who was 16 years old when Aaron Hall abused her and violated her, blaming her for their abuse. You're sympathizing with the same system that's beating your ass, okay? So many Black men play dumb about everything that doesn't pertain to them. God forbid if Cassie fights back against her oppressor. Just because you as Black men are too cowardly and broken to hold your oppressors accountable for abusing you and destroying your community, you don't want to divorce yourself from the system, don't hate on Cassie for having the courage to do so. If Cassie is not an abuse victim, if Gloria Velez is not an abuse victim, then neither are you. Don't blame the white man, don't blame the system, and don't blame Black women for your life being the way that it is, because it's your fault. Everything is your fault. Just like everything was Cassie's fault. You knew what it was. Even though the government is more powerful than you, they control your schools, they control your media, they control your culture, it is still your responsibility not to be beaten down by the system. So if you commit a crime, it is 100% your fault. If the police stomp on you, beat you up, shoot you, that's 100% your fault, because you should have known better. You should have behaved. You knew what it was, just like Cassie knew what it was, dealing with Diddy. So whatever happened to her in a relationship with Diddy was 100% her fault, because she stayed. And you're staying in the system too, Black man. You're staying in the same system that beats your ass every day. Or so you say. Are you lying about that too? If Cassie's lying, then you're lying about being oppressed. If Cassie's lying about her abuse, then you're lying about being oppressed, because Diddy is the same as the patriarchy. He's a manifestation of that in her life. So if you don't have any empathy for Cassie, why should we have empathy for the plight of Black men in this country who occasionally get disciplined by the state? Disciplined with a bat or a gun. Why should we have an issue with that? That's your fault. Whatever you did was your fault. So if Cassie and these other groupies are not abuse victims, then neither are you. All right? All right, guys, I'm going to leave it there. I look forward to reading your feedback. Please like, share, and subscribe, and I will speak to you soon.